Welcome to this week's Uncommon Ground podcast with your host, Jonathan Silva, myself, and Louie B. Free. Today we are interviewing Tara Shannon, the rabbit and bear.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am absolutely thrilled to be doing this show this morning. And I've got rabbit savior Jonathan Silva and rabbit and bears Tara, again, or Tara. We talked about this before, right? About how you'd get different. Shannon, delighted to have you both.
So is it Tara or Tara?
Well, wait, it's a great story. Come on, you got to
Okay.
Tell the story.
I'm really fine with either. Tara is the way that it's pronounced in Ireland.
Okay.
My dad was Irish, and so when they selected that name for me, he was always very keen to tell people that it was Tara. And yet he and my mom were the very first ones to turn around and call me Tara whenever, I was in trouble for something or whatever. So I've had it all, and it doesn't really offend me to hear either. I kind of do pay attention though when people get Tara and say Tara. So, that's not.
That's great. I love that. I think when we first talked, when we first spoke, you told me that story. That was great. Absolutely.
One of those contradictory stories that kind of encapsulates my dad a little bit.
Yeah.
Two sides of him.
I got one question. Do you live in Canada or United States? Because I read your.
I live in Canada.
Okay.
I'm in Canada. Yeah.
In a remote area, far away from everybody. Is that true?
I'm about an hour and a half away from Toronto. So I'm close to larger cities.
Gotcha.
But I'm in a rural area. So, and I hope one day that I can move even farther north and be further away.
Tara, if you would talk a little bit about, again, we've talked about this before, about your story, if you will.
Yes.
And some of the difficulties that you faced.
I just actually had an anniversary, and it kind of slipped by a little quietly this year. Maybe that's a good thing. But on July 4th, it was the 10-year anniversary when I had surgery to remove my thyroid. So that was July 4th, 2012. And so that was kind of like at the center of a very, and I'm sorry, you're probably going to hear my dogs here drinking water and they might act up. But from about 2009 until about 2014, maybe even longer if you count the time it took me to get myself righted again. I miscarried. My marriage ended. Both my parents passed away. My mom had Hodgkin's lymphoma, and it went away, and it came back again. And it had just my dad passed in 2011. And I switched jobs that moment and so my dad passed. I made a job change, which was not the right choice, but anyways, and just after that, my mom was re-diagnosed with the Hodgkin's lymphoma. Had come back, and then I found out that I had thyroid cancer. I began that journey in the fall of 2011. And unfortunately, with the place that I worked at the time, the place I worked prior was wonderful, but I made this job change and it was not wonderful. And I was this new person, and all of a sudden, immediately I needed time off to go to appointments for myself and tests and for my mom and tests and everything that she needed. And it did not go over well. So by the time the fall of 2012 came around, I found myself without a job. They terminated my contract while I was on medical leave. And so it was just, everything was falling apart. And but I just kept going, because I didn't, what else do you do? And I wasn't really so much thinking about me as much as I was like, I need to be here for my mom. She doesn't have my dad anymore. She was living in her home alone, and all of, her health was drastically changing. And then I was without a job. So it was really scary, but at the same time, I didn't have time to think about it. So I just kept kind of motoring ahead. And so January of 2013, I had the treatment for the thyroid cancer that I had. And then April 2013, my mom passed away. And then it was time to, settle the estate and do all of those things. And then when that was done, I just sort of sat there and I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't know who I was anymore. I mean, that was such a lot of change. And I didn't even look at it that way at the time. I took a therapist around that same time, after I sort of explained everything to him. He said, that's a lot for one person.
That's a
in
lot.
a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
And I hadn't been letting myself see that, because I have two sisters and we're estranged. Unfortunately, deaths in families of parents sometimes bring out the bad side. What is it?
Yeah.
I understand that.
Bring out the bad.
100%.
And so it's a sad situation. They blamed me for, unfortunately, for a lot of things, but that goes into, part of our relationship and upbringing that don't need to necessarily talk about right now. But so that happened, and they were sympathetic, but also not at the same time. And that support not being there, it hurt. It continues to hurt, and I think it allowed me to carry on thinking that I didn't deserve any sympathy or empathy at the time, and I just had to keep pushing, kind of fake it until I made it. And then the kind of other side of that was that I eventually just burned out, and I crashed, and the anxiety and this thyroid cancer. Your thyroid regulates your hormones. And as a woman, that's kind of a double hit, right?
Sure.
And
Yes.
so when after my thyroid was out, they purposely kept me hyperthyroid. That was a form of treatment to suppress the potential growth of the return of cancer. So here I was, hyperthyroid, that sort of fed into my anxiety, and then I was also battling depression there too, but it was mostly this constant state of anxiety that I was in. My heart was, constantly going. They even sent me for tests on my heart to see if something, might
Was
be
off.
going on there as well,
Yeah.
which it wasn't, thankfully. It's just, I just had become so used to living in this fight or flight state of life for so long, and this hyper, I'm still used to that. I'm kind of can be a hyper person. But so I crashed, and I had, thankfully, I do have some good friends. I have a partner who's been there for me and stuck with me, and I've, been to few different therapists in this journey since then, and came to the conclusion that it was fine that I take a step back and realize that I had been through a lot, and that I needed help to get through it, to process it. And part of that recovery brought me to Rabbit and Bear, and that was in the spring of 2019. And so first it was rabbits. I just had this idea one day. I was just on the edge. My anxiety was really high. I still wasn't working at that point. I was doing odd jobs, and it was getting to that crunch point. It's like I had to do something. I had to figure something out to start earning some money, get back to work. And I was terrified. And so I just, in that one moment, I thought, okay, well, I'm not going to get a job at this very second, but I do need to calm down in this very second. And it just sort of came into my head that I would sit down and draw, because that was something as a child I remember calming me down. Writing has always been there for me. I've always used that as a way to process my thoughts and feelings. So I thought, what if I can kind of join the two together? So I sat down, and I've had pet rabbits in the past. I didn't at that time. So I flipped open Pinterest, and I was looking at photographs of rabbits, and I started to draw and write, and that was the start of it. And rabbit at that point talked to different animals and flowers and butterflies and things like that. And then bear came along, and then it was March 2020 when one of those images with bear talking about, it was about anxiety essentially, and how rabbit just didn't need bear to fix anything. They just needed bear to be there with them.
Beautiful.
And that kind of spoke to a lot of people. March 2020, I wonder why. And lo and behold, I didn't even know, because somebody stole it from my, unfortunately stole it from my social media account and cropped my name out of it. But before I went to bed one night in March 2020, I'm like, hey, I'm scrolling through Facebook. I'm like, that's my drawing. Wow. And I just kept chasing it at that point. Like, and since then, it's still making the rounds. But yeah, it went viral, and how I got here.
That's so amazing. So why the bear? So what made you choose the bear?
At the time, none of it made any sense to me. I just thought I can draw a rabbit. I can draw these, cute bears. And somebody earlier asked me that too, like, well, what's the significance behind the rabbit and the bear? And then I thought about it, and like bear has been my nickname since I was a child.
Oh wow. Okay.
I couldn't, and that kind of goes back to my Tara thing. When I was a child, I couldn't pronounce the T in my name. And because my parents, my dad or whoever would fluctuate between calling me Tara or Tara, Bear or Bera, I guess, would come out, and that stuck. And I still have a few family members that call me Bear or the Bear to this day. And then as far as the rabbit, when I miscarried in 2009, a toy rabbit, stuffed rabbit, was the only gift I had received during that pregnancy, and so I still have it. And so when I look at rabbit and bear, I can see that relationship between potentially being myself, and the child I lost. But then I also see it as being the younger rabbit, being the younger version of me.
That's what I thought.
Bear being my parents, grandparents, all the people that I've lost from my life, and kind of me talking to them, talking through all of the things that happened to me, and I didn't have them there to lean on, because that has been hard. And then the same goes kind of, I think that's how they translate to other people so well too, because I don't define them as anything other than rabbit and bear, and they, them, which for some people can be controversial. They're not a she, they're not a he, they're they and them. And then so everybody can see themselves in rabbit and bear.
I do too.
So that's the reason. There's a few.
Do you only have 2 books right now?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
I'd love to have more. I'm hopeful, but I do have a publisher. I have a lovely publisher, Winter Tickle Press. Heather Down is the publisher there, But Rabbit and Bear has grown so much. I've had requests for translations and
Wow.
printing and publishing in other countries. And being a small press, it's been a lot for Heather to navigate. And so we kind of started to think, well, maybe there's a larger publisher that could take us on. And so far that hasn't happened, but an agent did find me, and she's been working very hard and to try and find a publisher. But unfortunately, a lot of the big publishers don't know what to do with me, especially in, they're like, are you for kids? Are you for adults? Charlie Mackesy already exists, James Norbury.
Your doggy. Your doggy wants some attention.
Yes.
Really wants some attention.
What kind of dogs do you have?
The mail is here.
Oh, the mail. Oh, the mailman.
Makes
Mail
sense.
person, letter carrier.
Can you give me just 1 second?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Take your time.
So sorry.
No.
No.
If Jonathan, she's just amazing.
You know what?
That story, all that grief, all that,
Oh yeah.
in such a short period of time.
Yeah. So I'm going to purchase the two books this weekend, and then I'll do a post on those. But yeah, I was reading their website. I'm actually looking at their website right now. It's very unique. It's very in between. It's, like you said, children and adult, but I think it's very in between, that
I
whatever you're actually thinking at that moment,
Wherever you're,
correlate to your either childhood or where you're at in present time.
I agree. No, I agree 100%. And that's the beauty
Sorry.
of it. It's for
The
everybody.
mail arrived. My apologies.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's real. It's raw. That's perfect.
That's it.
That's it, right? That's
But I love
Yeah.
the illustrations. They're very awesome. I was
Oh,
telling
yeah.
Louie,
Thank you.
it's almost like it can go both ways, a childhood or an adulthood. In the book, because I'm going to purchase 2 of your books this weekend, and I'll do a post about them.
Oh.
But it's whatever position you're in life, your sayings, your everything. It's like it'll bring you back to that sector of where you are individually. So I love it.
Thank
Because I
you.
actually posted one of your things, I think a couple of weeks ago, no, about a month or 2 ago, and I posted it. And then Louie's like, do you want to get her on the show? I said, yes, please.
Oh,
yeah.
thank you. I'm glad,
again,
I'm
we're
glad you like it. Yeah.
and Tara, you know how I feel about your work. And I still, when I look in the book or I see something posted, so often it just brings me to really, literally to tears, no matter how many times I've seen the illustration and I'm reading it, and it evokes,
Good
we've talked
memories.
about-
Yeah. Because every time I read something, because I'm on it right now, it's just
It's
like
beautiful.
takes you back to good.
Yeah.
I like it.
And I love how you have them there for each other.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
you know, and when,
And I feel there's some people that, they're like, I wish I had a bear. I wish I had a rabbit or whatever it is. And because they don't have anyone and I read those comments and I feel those comments. I've been in those moments where I felt like I didn't have that, or I was missing that support. And so I offer Rabbit and Bear. I know it's not a person. It's not the same thing as having physically someone there beside you. But sometimes it's just nice to feel like you're not alone in what you're thinking and feeling. And so they're there for that. They've helped me. That's the whole reason why they're here, is they were helping me process so much and deal with so much. And then now they have this new life, and they're there for
Wonderful.
others. And I really am grateful for that. So.
And it's absolutely wonderful because, again, the popularity of Rabbit and Bear is incredible. Like you say, when the one went viral, but it's just that the way they speak with each other, the way they communicate, and having tea together. Sometimes it's comforting. It's very comforting and very, very deep. And what you've created for people is how you're helping others.
it really still blows my mind. I think I don't know if I'll ever not say that, but you know, when this journey started in 2020, I had, you know, 200 fans, mostly friends and family, and then with every milestone from that point, it's like, oh my goodness, I have 1,000, I have 2, and then it went 5, 10, 20, 25, 50, and then now it's 100 and almost 165,000 just on Facebook, and the messages and things that I receive are just so heart-wrenching, beautiful,
rewarding,
just every rewarding. It's amazing, and I'm very grateful and happy that Rabbit and Bear can be there for so many people.
Now, do you have a third book in the process by chance, or no? Are you kind of?
I have put something together that the agent has been sort of kind of shopping around to see if there's another publisher out there in the world that might be interested in taking that on. So far, no bites, because again, they don't know what to do with me.
Yeah, that's odd. I'm sorry, Tara, but that's odd to me. I mean, with how things go viral and how many people on Facebook, etc. I don't know. I don't understand. I don't understand that with the popularity.
I don't know either. There's some people. Obviously, I have fans, but there are still some people out there that get quite upset with me, saying that I'm plagiarizing or copying Charlie Mackesy, who is the artist for The Boy, the Horse, the Fox, and the Mole, which is a beautiful book. But that's not what I'm doing.
No, not at all.
Style. I have mine. Same with A.A. Milne and Winnie the Pooh. I have some people who are like, oh, this reminds me of, and they think it's lovely. And then others who are upset, thinking that I'm stealing from that. And I'm not. I certainly that was more of an influence on my life than Charlie Mackesy's work. I didn't know about him until much later on. But I'm just trying to do my thing.
I have those people. We're gonna have them. Trust me.
Yeah, and that part.
Yes.
I don't get. If you don't like it or whatever. And I can't imagine. I don't think I'd want to know anybody that didn't like Rabbit and Bear and your work, Tara Shannon. But I just think, don't watch it. I always just say radio if you don't like, because people would, and it's gotten much worse with people wanting to say horrible things these days. Yeah. But even back then, it's like, turn it off. You don't have to. No one's forcing you to listen. No one's forcing them to watch it. And why would you? Just move on. Why do you need to? What I don't know. The negativity.
I think they don't. Unfortunately, they don't equate. And I've noticed this, and I've addressed it directly with some people. They forget that I'm a real person, and so there's been the occasion when a comment like that will pop up on one of my images. That's not the nicest, and I'll respond. And that person will either sometimes they respond back just as in unfriendly way, and that's kind of the end of that. I'll get remove that comment. But sometimes they'll message or comment back and say, "I'm so sorry. I forgot in that moment that you're real." And
wow, that's, I mean, I
like
that they apologize.
Not a lot.
Yeah. I like that they apologize. The idea of not thinking you're real, that's something I don't get that, but I think it's wonderful that they would reach back to you and apologize.
Yes. Yeah. I appreciate that they do that.
Yeah. But those are more rare, right?
They are more rare. Yes. It's not very often that happens. One was a teacher and she responded and she said, "I am so sorry. I've had this conversation with my students about remembering that online, when you're talking to people,
They're real people.
Yeah.
arguably there are some that are not real people, but
That's
a
a
lot
good
of
point. That's a good
us
point.
with these pages, artists and things like that, we're real and we have feelings, and I'm reading all of those comments. I don't have, a lot of people too will be like, oh, you know, you probably never will see this. Somebody else is, you know, doing the work. And it's like, no, it's just me.
Yeah.
And I'm reading it all.
It's jealousy. A lot of it's jealousy.
Yeah. And I've always said, you know, people want to point the finger, but fear the mirror. They never want to
Correct,
look at themselves. They're not going to look in.
Yes.
That's
They're gonna point.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I do see it that way. I see a lot of it as being projection, and I just don't respond. I just don't.
Yeah, good.
It's not worth it nowadays.
No. You don't want to
So
get
they
into a
don't
dialogue.
respond. They like it because they want to argue back with you. So
Yes.
it's just like, you know what? Keep your keyboard, keep your bottle of wine, and just look the other way. You know, because it's funny because, you know, it's amazing how many people stay on social media all day long just to either fight,
Attack. Yeah. Fight.
respond to comments, and give their 2 cents that mean nothing. You know, no issue to that, but you know, it's great they give their 2 cents, but when they go too far is when it's like, come on, you know, that makes me
and it's changed so much. So I said this before, but I remember again my early radio days that I spell with a Z. There were people. I had a caller once that called in and called me names and things like, why don't you get out of town? I still remember. How dare you call the president, the first lady, a couple of jerks in Washington, you long-haired, dope-using, maggot-infested, yellow-bellied coward. Why don't you get out of town? I still remember. I've played it as a promo on the show for decades now. And it was just, and he hung up, by the way, called me a coward, then he hung up. He didn't want to engage in dialogue. But they have gotten some, those were rare back then. Now the emails.
Now it's like almost every day. But I think
the
people
emails
feel good about themselves when they do that.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
But it's just got to be a momentary fix. That's why they keep doing it, because it's like, oh, I feel, you know, I got to do it again because I'm losing that.
Yeah, but what is that though? I mean, how could you get a buzz from criticizing someone or posting something nasty? I don't get that. I don't want to get that.
I'll keep my mouth shut.
No, please, Jonathan.
One day I'll unleash. It'll be the right time. But no, I just don't understand people nowadays, because it's like they like to lash out or cyberbully because they have an issue with themselves. It stems from themselves. Bottom line, you know, I can fight this argument all day long, and I will. But it's the people that, you know, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. The people that have no life, that they are jealous of everything else that's out there. They're not doing anything with their life, and they're just picking their battles just to feel better about themselves. And even for me too, you know, what I'm doing with Rabbit Savior, I have nothing but great comments, but I can see a change in people when I talk to them, because it's like, wow, he really is taking this, you know, as far as he can. It's jealousy because they want to do it. I used to get people that, you know, email me, oh, you know what, you stole my idea. Oh. Well, I think everybody has ideas, but when you
stole my idea. Well, why didn't you do it? Why didn't they do it? Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I got from, you know, the get-go. And I'm like, you know what, whatever, you know, I don't care. But, you know, that's to go back to you. It's what you're doing is amazing. And if people can't see that and see the heart that is on this website that I'm looking at right now, how could you even say
I think it's the same. It's what you're saying. I see that too. And that's sort of where a lot of my more recent works, I guess, are taking me, in that direction of trauma and healing from that. And a lot of people find that intimidating. Self-work, to actually look at yourself, is hugely intimidating. And I remember when I was younger, I would just sort of, I didn't kind of get it when I would look at some other, you know, friends or people in my family that maybe weren't dealing with things I thought they could deal with in a different way. And then I taught yoga very briefly. in 2016 as I was kind of making my way out of what I had been going through. And I remember when I would teach those classes and some, new people would come along to join the class, I could almost tell right away who was going to make it and who would return and who wouldn't even make it through the first 5 minutes of the class, because they couldn't sit in silence. They couldn't sit with themselves.
Yeah.
And
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so that I noticed that was very remarkable. And and then as I started to work more on my like inside my brain is a loud place. I have a very visual brain.
Same.
Yes, same.
That comes across through Rabbit and Bear, obviously, in my writing, but that all goes on simultaneously in my head all the time. Like I'm talking to you guys, meanwhile I can visualizations are happening in my brain and an inner monologue and all of these things. But I'm quite happy to sit quietly. I love getting up in the morning very early and just sitting with nothing, no television, no other noise except nature and my thoughts. And sometimes I'll follow those thoughts through whatever, happy or not happy place they're going to take me
somewhere,
because it's in those dark places that it's going to sound corny, but that's where you find the breakthroughs. That's where you find the lights. You find yourself and you find that comfort because you can sit with that. And you're like, all right, why is this bugging me? What can we do about it?
What can you do about it? Yeah. That's the difference.
Carry on. Some people can't do that.
Or they won't.
And they may never be able to do that. Yeah. So that's, I find myself writing a lot more about that with Rabbit and Bear, because I see how that unhealed trauma affected my life. So it wasn't just that moment in time where I had all those things go wrong. I had a whole life. I was 35 at that point. Like I had a whole life before that of things that were going on and people in my life and that affected created the person that I was and the choices that I was making leading up to them. That moment in time where everything just sort of compounded and went, that just opened it up and forced me. That was my turning point. It's like, you're going to either deal with this and do something different, drastically different, or you're just going to keep going in the same dysfunctional cycle until you choose to or don't.
Yeah. What I've always said is you deal with it, whatever it is, or it will deal with you.
Yeah.
And that's, and too often people don't, or won't deal with it. And it keeps cycling back to it. And
it will just when you do deal with it, it doesn't mean that like, oh, I dealt with that, it's done now.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Sunshine and rainbows and we carry on. No. It's still, there's still things that happen and come back and it's like, oh, I'm going to nudge you. I'm going to poke you. Like, and for me, it's certain anniversaries that do that.
Sure.
My birthdays and anniversaries of, different things can sometimes poke at me and then I'll think back on something and I'm like, okay, I'll just sit with it for a second, let it exist there for a moment, think about why it's, doing that, and then carry on or or write something or go back to therapy for a little bit, but it's an ongoing process. It's never ending.
Never,
and that's not a bad thing. Maybe that sounds like it's monotonous and awful, but it's but I don't mean it to sound that way.
it's growth instead of stagnating. I feel, again, you deal with it or it'll deal with you. You've got to, people fear the mirror. You've got to. I had a profound experience 35 years ago, maybe, when I was this will tell you how long ago it was. I had my Sony Walkman cassette player, headsets on, was getting ready to go for my daily run. And I talk to myself and answer, because again, then who's listening? If right. And I would remember saying something. I caught my eyes in the mirror and I said to the mirror, to myself, you can tell that to somebody else, but you can't tell that to me. It was inaccurate. And I ended up like in a puddle, sobbing on the floor as I was doing this, talking. And but it was so healing. Obviously, it was difficult time, but it was so for me. And I'll never. That was such maybe 40 years ago. I don't know. Yeah, probably. It was so powerful for me. And I just think, again, it doesn't mean things go away, but you're working on them and you're clearly communicating. Well, in that case, I was communicating with myself, but you're doing something.
Oh, that's great. Really if you're communicating with yourself and you're comfortable with yourself, then that's your base is you.
That's it.
Yeah, it's real. And it's real. I want to say, TaraShannonWrites.com, TaraShannonWrites.com, and RabbitSavior.com.
Yeah.
Jonathan Silva, Rabbit Savior, and all the crew that you've amassed, my friend.
Yes. So if you don't mind, I'd love to post about your stuff, if that's okay, on social media.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Definitely.
Cool.
Yeah.
The popularity, again, I'm kind of repeating, but the popularity kind of astounded you. First going viral and then people always wanting more. It's got to come from within, right? You can't just do it because people want you to do it. It comes from
the heart.
Yeah.
I get asked a lot, do I do custom rabbit and bears? Can I write something about such and such, or take more of a stand on something? And first, I don't do customs because it has to be something I've experienced, because if it's not something I have experienced or can make a connection to, I will still think about whatever somebody messages me about, and try to make that connection so that it is honest, it's real. Because if I'm just forcing it and making it up, then it doesn't have that, it's not genuine. So I can't just do custom rabbit and bear. And then as far as taking a stand, I have my way about doing that. And I try to be subtle in my communications through rabbit and bear, and people might pick up on it and they might not. And so that's that.
Yeah.
I do the best I can with what I've got, and to continue to represent rabbit and bear. And it's not all rabbit and bear that I post about, and that I think that upsets some people too sometimes when I post something that isn't rabbit and bear, that's just a standalone poem or something, or different writing that I do. And it's like I do more than just the rabbit and bear. I do try and tie them together as much as possible,
but again, it's got to come from within.
Yeah,
you can't just create
from within.
Yeah, I love that. That.
Yeah.
And again,
I try to simplify things for myself. That's where it starts. Like, so sometimes there are these feelings that I've had over the years, and things that have happened to me, and they've been big feelings, and I don't have the words to describe them, maybe in the moment. And so then I try to boil them down to that essence. And then I think in that essence, and the simplicity, which some people mistake as being for children. And there's a lot of people that do use rabbit and bear for children. I have a lot of teachers and parents and grandparents and therapists that have reached out to me and said that they do use rabbit and bear with the children, and they read them to them, and they both get something out of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, is like they appear simple, but there's kind of level nuance
Yeah,
to
Yeah.
them.
for everybody. I understand that, therapists and for children. I also understand it for old people like me.
Mhm.
And how, well, it's a reality, and how it impacted me. And still, like I say, I'll still tear up. Sometimes big smile, sometimes just touches me.
To this day, the kind of the most surprising message I received about Rabbit and Bear and where they've gone was a therapist working in a men's maximum security prison.
Wow.
And they use Rabbit and Bear in their trauma work and healing.
Oh God,
That's
that's
remarkable.
With the inmates, and that just,
wow, that's incredible. Think about, and you
that to me is just, I'm trying to imagine it, and I love that. I love that they could be helping.
I get that. You know, when you
men
say
there.
that, I understand that, how it could be used to be helpful.
Yeah.
For people to, you know, in that situation or any situation, to help healing. And you've, Tara Shannon, have gifted it to the world and continue to.
Yes, I love it.
Let's
Amazing work. Amazing. I just love it. So I'll purchase those books this weekend on Amazon, correct? I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
Availability is, as you were just saying, Jonathan, and a little bit more about your website, Tara.
Mine?
Yes, Tara Shannon writes.
It's kind of I've been working on it a little bit. But so it's tarashannonwrites.com, and there you can read a little bit more about me. I do have a few blog posts there. I should write some new ones maybe. And then I have a quick links page where you can find out more about the books, where to buy them, which in most places around the world, it's Amazon, amazon.com, .ca, .co.uk. The only place I've really found that it's difficult to get Rabbit and Bear is the Philippines and South Africa.
Wow.
But some people are finding a way to still get it. And there's been some people in Australia that have said that they've had difficulty getting the book, but it is available on Amazon in Australia and a couple of other websites.
That's wonderful.
If you have a favorite bookstore, wherever you are in the world, you should be able to go in and ask them to order it in for you, either book. So Rabbit and Bear Make a Wish was my first book. And then Rabbit and Bear Return with Delight is my second book. And you can kind of see, I enjoy it because you can kind of see my journey of, because I'm not an artist. I've always liked to draw and, that sort of thing.
You're an artist.
Yes, you are.
You're an artist. You are, Tara.
Yes.
You are an amazing artist. Jonathan, can you give us a quick update on Rabbit Savior?
Yeah, Rabbit Savior, we're actually doing the directory right now. So we should have that hopefully done in about, I want to say, a month or two. So where people can actually go on, it'll be a live directory, update it all the time. So if you don't know where a vet is or emergency vet, you can go on there, locate everything. The bunny chat coexists with that. So you can go online, talk to us, we can walk you through how to do it, find somebody. So we're trying to do little innovation things to really, accentuate the bunny community.
I've got to say, this has been such a joy, and I'm so glad that you agreed, Tara, to come on and do this with Jonathan and I. It's beautiful, and
thank you for having me.
You've impacted the world.
Well.
You know that.
Yes, you have,
and continue to. And it's and again, revealing a lot about yourself and coming out of pain, terrible pain. So it's tarashannonwrites.com and rabbitsavior.com. I've loved this. Thank you both.
Awesome. Thank you both, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Nice to meet you, Jonathan.
You too.
He is wonderful. He is absolutely wonderful.
Thank you so much, Louie.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Have